Hello, Be It Babe. Welcome back to the Beit Till You See It podcast. I'm so excited. I have a dear friend, Natasha Caleel, here. She is incredible. Ladies, this one is for you, especially my mamas out there. If you're not a mom, I hope you still listen because I found it to be very refreshing. I actually found lots of it, things that we can apply to ourselves because it doesn't matter if you are a mom or not. For some reason, women, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves, like a lot, to do a lot of things perfectly, to be all these things. And like, it's really easy to lose yourself in the work or the people that depend on you, whether they're little ones or partners and team members. So please listen to this because the advice she has is something that anyone can use. And she's such a joyous, generous human being. And for you women out there with little ones, I hope you check out the workouts that she has. So it's amazing to me all the different things that we can go out there and do. Like, growing up, I never could be a podcaster because it didn't exist. And so I can see like how it's really funny when people ask, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? It's like, did you always want to be that when you grow up? It's like a lot of things that we were all doing didn't even exist 10 years ago. And so it's funny how we think that life has to be linear when like it's not, like it's actually not in any way. And so you'll see with Natasha's story that it isn't linear, but it all adds up to like what she's created for herself to help women around her. And I share that and I point that out and I really want you to listen to that because if you're feeling stuck, if you're feeling like, okay, but I did this thing over here and I did this thing over here and I did this thing over here and none of those things connect. I bet they do. I bet there's actually a common thread that you can bring in there because it's you're already the common thread, but also like there's a skill set that each one of those gives you that you can create something so unique that really is solving the problem that someone has. And honestly, if you can solve people's problems, you can do anything, right? Like it's really like, that's what people want. They just want a problem to be solved. And we all have obstacles no matter who we are. So I'll stop talking. You're going to listen to Tasha. She's amazing. And let us know how these tips and her story helps your life by tagging us on the Be It Pod. And here's Natasha.
Welcome to the Be It Till You See It podcast, where we talk about taking messy action, knowing that perfect is boring. I'm Lesley Logan, Pilates instructor and fitness business coach. I've trained thousands of people around the world, and the number one thing I see stopping people from achieving anything is self-doubt. My friends, action brings clarity, and it's the antidote to fear. Each week, my guests will bring bold, executable, intrinsic, and targeted steps that you can use to put yourself first and be it till you see it. It's a practice, not a perfect. Let's get started.
Hello, Be It Babes. I've got my friend Natasha Caleel here. Y'all, I met this woman in a room, hotel situation, and like, we go around, everyone's talking about what they do, like in a sentence and like an interesting fact about them. And I just was obsessed with what you do and your passion on this planet because you really are here to help so many women. So I knew I wanted to be friends with you and we get to hang out together. I get to see her next week in LA in real life, which is so fun.
I know. I'm so excited.
I just really, anytime I can be in person with people, I'm like, oh, and this is an introvert, but that's because I've been inside so long. I'm like, the introvert is ready. She's
totally, let me out.
Let me out. So Natasha, can you tell everyone who you are and what you're doing these days?
Yeah, of course. So I am the owner of Fit Mama Santa Barbara. I coach women both locally and online, and I help them really embrace their strength and feel strong and confident in their own skin. My background is as an occupational therapist, and I'm now working as a women's health coach, specializing in prenatal and postpartum.
That is so cool. That is so cool. So, okay. Did you start off as an occupational therapist and then get into like Fit Mama? Like, or is the other way around? Like you were helping women pre-postpartum and then you became like, how did it start?
No. Yeah. So it's really interesting. So my undergrad was in kinesiology. So I worked as a personal trainer all through school. You know, that's what I kind of was doing for a while. And then I went back to school to become an occupational therapist and started my career, was really into that. And then I had my daughter. And obviously that changes the whole narrative because all of a sudden I realized like, oh man, like I can't just jump right back into all the exercise I was doing. Like there is a lot of rehab stuff that needs to go on here. So that's why my business started. And I've been able to kind of blend that therapy side with the personal training and really help women heal their core from the inside out and work on all those healthy habits to really get you back into a routine after having a kid.
Yeah. And I love that it's like, from necessity, you created it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I think that like a lot of people get stuck on like what to do. And it's like, actually, it's like the thing that you probably think everyone is doing, but you figured it out. Like, right.
Well, and the thing was so crazy. Like after I had my kid, I started looking up places locally and I'm like, okay, there's gotta be people here doing postpartum exercise. And at the time there really weren't that many people. So I was like, well, I guess I'm doing it. Here we go.
Okay. So have you always been a self-starter, or is that like, just because you were like, I really used to be fit and felt confident in my body and now I don't. And so you're on a mission, like, or
a little bit of both. I've definitely always been a very independent, like forward driving person.
Yeah.
So I think that personality type mixed with having something that I saw a need for, that's why that was kind of born. So,
can we talk a little bit about, I mean, like if you're listening, you're not postnatal right now, take this as information and there'll be some more things here, but I'm curious because I am not one of those. But I have seen women change. I've had clients who are postnatal, like, and of course, like with my limited expertise, I've been able to work with them. But, what I've seen is like, there is like a lack of confidence, or there's almost like, it's almost like they feel foreign in the body that they're. So can you talk about like what happens to a woman postpartum that is kind of making this feeling happen? Because you said like, you're like, I'm just going to go back to working out the way I was. And you're like, oh, that's not working. So can you talk about like,
Totally.
What's that process like, and why is it affecting women that way?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of the things actually do carry over to other clientele as well. So it's the same principles that apply if you're recovering from an injury, or maybe something happened where you had to take time off from exercise, and getting back into it is no longer just, okay, I just need to go back to the gym. We both know there's a lot of mindset work behind that, a lot of physical recovery and building back up that strength and endurance. And so that's a lot of the same things that apply with the postpartum clients as well. So I find the number one thing that is so hard for all my clients is that mindset shift of you no longer are just responsible for yourself. So prior to having a kid, and I know this, and it's something I never even really thought about that deeply. I was like, oh, I go to the gym after work. That's what I do. And all of a sudden it's like, well, now I have to pick up my kid from preschool and make it home and make dinner and clean up and do all these things. So I no longer am just focused on me. And so I think that's been a big part of my teaching with my clients, is finding out a way to make exercise and make healthy living work for you in your current situation. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause it also changes, right? Because like,
absolutely.
And that changes for anyone, whether I don't have a kid, but like all of a sudden my dog had his paw wrapped up. And so now I have to carry him to the backyard to go to the bathroom because homeboy refused to walk on it. And so carry this 50-pound dog out. Then I have to carry the 50-pound dog in, and then I have to help on and like, so your routine can change and for any reason.
Oh, absolutely.
And so what I do find interesting though with parents is that like, it's almost like the pendulum swings the other way. So they go from being so like, I'm about me and I'm taking care of me and maybe your partner and like your job, to like, well, now I'm all about the baby, because obviously the baby can't do anything for itself. So that's fine. But like, there's almost like no I anymore. There's no self thing. And like, so how do you help them with that? Because this is like, I feel like people look at me like I'm a crazy person. I'm like, you actually have to put your air mask on first. That's what they say at that.
Absolutely. Well, it's so true. And I think making people realize that it doesn't have to be perfect. And I know this is something that you talk about a lot, and I really try to drive home with my clients. Like, even if you only have 10 minutes to do something, that's great. That's still 10 minutes more than you were going to do at all. So, if you are going into a workout routine and you're like, okay, I'm going to sign up for this exercise class and I'm going to go 5 days a week and it's an hour and a half out of my day every day, you're never going to be able to do that.
Right.
So what can you do instead? So what's like a realistic goal that you can stick with? It's all about consistency. We all know in order to reach our goals, we got to be consistent. So what can you do that's going to keep you consistent so that you're not flip-flopping back and forth between feeling guilty about not being able to do things and then like doing things for a short while and then completely falling off track? So I think with just parenthood in general, it's being a little bit kinder to yourself. And I found this even with work, where I'm like, okay, some weeks my daughter requires a lot of my attention. And I might not get everything done on my checklist, and that's okay. It can always be carried over to the next week.
Right. Well, that's just it. Like, unless you're listening to this and you are like some sort of surgeon and people need your surgery skills today, the majority of us, everything can have a little bit of a leeway. And I'm someone who sets a deadline sooner so that I do have a room to push it back.
Totally. I know. Oh man.
But you have to know yourself. So when you work with women on this, like, are you doing nutritional help, like training help? Is it more mindset? Or is it holistic? Like, what do you find is like the best way to help women in their postpartum needs?
Definitely. I feel so. If you know anything about occupational therapy, so occupational therapy really looks at the whole person. So it's looking at the person, the environment, and the things that they have to do in their daily life. So I really use those principles in my training. Because if we're just working on the person and you're not addressing any of the other things, you're going to have some setbacks there.
Oh, this is fascinating because I don't think people know the difference between occupational therapy and like physical therapy. Because when you go to physical therapy, like at least my experience is like I went to physical therapy after I broke my leg, and and the guy's like, yeah, I don't think it's your leg that is the problem. I think it's your back. So we have to go back to the doctor to talk about that. And I was like,
oh no.
Oh my God.
Great. You're like, can you just fix my leg? That's why I'm here.
What the heck? So occupational therapy is very holistic. You're looking at all of it to make it okay. That's
so
cool.
A lot of times I'll give an example because it is a super common question. People are like, wait a second, like what's the difference? So if I go to someone's home, for example, and they have a broken leg, I'm going to look at the bathroom setup. I'm going to look at their environment. I'm going to look at the support that they have at home, in addition to working with the person one-on-one with their exercises and all the other things. So it's more, you're looking at the person, but then you're looking at everything else around them, as opposed to the physical therapist will come in and be like, okay, I'm going to look at these muscles and this range of motion, and this is exactly what we need to work on.
So fascinating. Everyone should be an occupational therapist is what I'm taking away from this. But like, it's true because that's something as a habits coach, you know, we both work with people on habits. Like, when people say, I'm going to work out every day for an hour, I'm like, okay, do you have the ability?
Like, that's the first question. Do you have the ability to work out for an hour?
You know, so if most people don't, like, for me to have time to work out for an hour straight.
Yes. It's a lot.
It's a lot. Like, we have, as a family, we go and work out at a place, and it is an hour and 15 minutes of our time because we literally leave 5 minutes before and hope we don't get a train. We get to cross it.
Exactly.
And then we get there, and it's an hour, and we do it as a family, and it's fun. It's fun. It's something we do as a family.
I love that.
But I couldn't do it. I wouldn't have that time for just myself because, like, so I break mine up. That's why my workout's like 20 minutes a piece, you know, because I can do 20 minutes for myself. So I do think that most people don't focus on ability. And I love that you do that because you're like, okay, is the bathroom even able for you to move around in here with your crutches or whatever? And so wouldn't it be cool if we all did that in our life with everything we're like about to do? It's like, do I have the ability? Is my house set up? Is my schedule set up? Like what?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Super cool. So, so when did you start, I guess I'm wondering, like, what made you get drawn into an occupational therapy, and like, how did you start to see like, I can do this and use it in everything that I do?
So this is actually, I did not come to this revelation until I actually started working with women and was doing the postpartum personal training. Like when I first started with that, I was really focused just on the physical. So I was focused on healing people's core. That was what I was doing. I was going to help them close their diastasis recti. I was going to help them with their pelvic floor, and that was it. But then, as you know, as you start coaching people one-on-one, all these other things come up. And that's when I started to see all the similarities. I'm like, well, wait a second, like this is the stuff I used to do with my old people with occupational therapy. And now I'm implementing the same strategies, just in a whole different light. So really working in like, you know, with my occupational therapy clients, we're talking about habits. We're talking about creating routine and like finding structure in your day so that you can get in your therapy exercises, so that you can do the things that you need to do throughout the day. And all of a sudden I was talking about all the same things, but in relation to being a mother.
Yeah.
So that's how that kind of got blended and overlapped.
See, I love this because I feel like a lot of people get stuck on like the who am I, and I didn't have this, and like you didn't, you know what I mean? Like it, like
I didn't start with much of a plan, to tell you the truth.
Right. People think there has to be a plan, and then it should be linear, and like you and I both run our own companies. And so we're very aware how
Yes.
not linear it is.
like this.
Yeah. But I think, it's so good for people to hear from another woman who is a mom that like, there wasn't much of a plan and you kind of like started over here and then you got drawn over to this point and then you took a little bit of that. And, I think that can be really freeing and inspirational for people to hear. Cause it's like, I don't know who starts out exactly doing what they want to do and they're still, I find that to be very rare.
And it keeps evolving too, because I find I've been doing this now for 8 years. So I started when my daughter was born. She's going to be almost 8 this year. And it's really evolved over that time because my clients have evolved and I've evolved. So now I'm more attracting clients that are in a similar stage as me with young kids at home, because that's where I am. So people look at you and they're like, okay, like it always says, if you want to be healthy, you do what healthy people do. Right. So someone looks at me online and they're like, oh, well, she looks healthy and she can exercise and she is an 8-year-old. So I can do that too.
Right. Because if you can see it, you can be it. Right. So
totally. Yeah. And like, I really evolved from that point of like, okay, we're doing baby wearing exercises with your newborns to now like a more holistic health coaching type practice, because I don't have a newborn to do baby wearing exercises. Right?
I know. Do you just borrow people's newborns for that? You're like, okay,
exactly. Let me borrow your baby. Can we put the baby on loan?
You go, I have a potato sack. You'll have a baby.
Yeah, like totally. It just got to the point where I was like, okay, I'm so not into that anymore. Like I need to shift.
I also think like at some point, maybe also, you're used to babies crying all the time. And then you kind of get to the point where you don't have babies crying all the time. And then you're like, oh, they're crying all the time.
I know. Well, the nice thing is I still see a couple in-person people who like to bring their babies in. And so I get my total baby fix. I'm like, okay, this is great. I can take the pictures and send them home.
Yes, that's exactly it. I love the idea of like a moment. Like we'll just borrow that.
Yes, we'll just borrow that.
So, okay. What are some things that you've done in your life when you, like, do you do things like, are you a manifestor, a journaler? How do you take your busy life with a child and like make things happen that are maybe outside of your expertise or your knowledge in the moment, right?
Oh gosh. Yeah. Good question. Because I'm not particularly a journaler. I've never been into that, but very much into manifesting. And I remember when I first moved to Santa Barbara. I know you've been to Santa Barbara, so beautiful homes. I've been to so many beautiful homes there. I'm just like, oh my gosh, like how?
Yeah.
So I remember when I first started working in town and I was going to people's houses, I would look around and be like, oh my gosh, like who are these people and how do they live here?
Right.
And
I know from LA, just
mission.
even from LA, I would go to people's houses and I'm like, how did they buy this house? But how?
Yes. Like just crazy. Right. And that became very much my mission of like, all right, I'm going to make it. I'm going to figure out how to make this work. And it was really messy and there was lots of ups and downs. And I've had a lot of setbacks in my life, but now I've been here 10 years and I'm finally at a point where I'm like, I'm comfortable in Santa Barbara and this is where I live. And this is the life that I'm living. And if you would have asked me 10 years ago, I'd be like, oh yeah, no way.
That's so cool. That is so like, instead of like going, oh, this could never happen to me. And like, maybe you thought like, no way, but like you saw these places and opportunities as like permission, like that. It's
absolutely,
that's really cool. That's hard, right? That's like, it's
so hard.
So like on the days, like, were there days that you didn't give yourself that permission? Like, how did you catch yourself? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, is there like
you very much fall into, so I went through a period where I got divorced and that was obviously tough, both mentally, financially, everything. And so during that time, it was really hard to not play the victim and I was still working. I was still going to people's houses, watching people live their fabulous lives while I was completely struggling. So it was really hard for me to not be like, well, it's because they're lucky. Like they didn't have hard things happen to them. But then you realize everyone actually has hard things happen to them. It's just a matter of overcoming that and working through it and not getting put in that mindset of like, why me? Yeah. So I find being able to break out of that and being able to be like, okay, you know what? This was an opportunity for growth. This was a chance to reinvent myself, to make decisions for myself. So I'm no longer basing my decisions on other people in my life. And that's what really helped me overcome that and get to the point where I'm like, all right, I still have the same vision. I still have the same goal. I'm going to make it work. And it's just a matter of taking a different way to get there. So
yeah, I think thank you for sharing that, because I do think there's a tension that we get if there's a why me. Yes. There's a tension that we can get as a victim. And not to say that anytime you're like, oh my God, this happened to me, that you're playing a victim role, like bad things happen.
No, of course not. Yeah.
But it is the consistency. Like, how long are you playing the record of that issue that happened to you versus like, if it, like, are you healing through it or are you staying in it because there's a different sort of attention you get. So I love that you could catch yourself and then take a moment and realize, like, actually, like, we're all dealing with obstacles every single day. And it really is a muscle, that mindset of like getting over it or seeing it as an opportunity or going, how do I like handle this right now? So.
Oh, absolutely. And I feel too, when you're looking at just your growth as a person, that you can never really move on to the next step until you heal from those things that happen. So I spent a lot of time kind of introspection.
Yeah, introspective.
We know
what it is. We're good.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. So I spent a lot of time focusing on that and focusing on what I needed to do to heal myself so that I could become the person that I knew I could be.
Yeah. Well, and that just made me think of, like, you just said, you can't move on to the next step until you heal where you're at, right?
Yes,
and like,
absolutely.
That's just like such in line with like the work that you do with the women that you're with. Like, even if they're not coming to you now, because now you're working with people with young kids, if those women didn't heal from the pregnancy, it's not like they get to like start off.
You don't skip ahead.
Yeah. There's no skipping.
Totally. You can't just like, that TikTok where it's like, can we skip to the good part? Yeah. You can't. It doesn't work.
It doesn't work. No, especially with our bodies. Like, they require
Absolutely.
each step. So they require that foundation. So I think that is an interesting thing that you can take into your life. So when you're working with women and they have tried to skip a step, or they've been told that they could skip a step, because a lot of people, think, oh, I'll just work out doing what I did before. Like, I don't need to go and do the pre-postnatal thing. Everything was fine. Like, maybe they had some amazing genetic trait, no diastasis problems.
Yes, exactly.
There's the women who are like born with like everything was good. Even they can't skip a step. Even there's a healing that has to happen, right? So what is it? What do you do with them?
No, that's a great question. I find, so once again, I've worked with hundreds of women, and I'd say maybe 1% of people are like, 6 weeks postpartum, I feel great. There's nothing wrong with me. I can get right back to my exercises. Because the bottom line is, when you work with a professional who's really looking at your movement patterns and looking at the imbalances between muscles and different weaknesses, you can always find something. There's always something to improve on. Like, one of my clients said the other day, she's like, will I ever be like perfect? Will I ever get to the point where everything is balanced? I'm like, no, because even me, every day I'm like, oh yeah, this glute's a little weaker. I should work on that.
I mean, I broke my right leg. My left glute is my weak one. Broke my right leg. So I thought, oh, guess what? I get to do
build up their left glute.
My left glute. And like to sit on the toilet. It's like a left pistol squat, getting up. Like I was like, this left glute is going to be so strong. It's still so freaking weak. And it was the working leg for 8 weeks.
Right. You're like, what the heck?
Yeah. And I'm a professional and I know how to do it. And my right leg is still dominant.
Yep. No, I feel that. So that's what I work on with people, is really looking at what do we need to focus on and what do we need to not focus on so much. So I find a lot of the postpartum programs are very much into like, don't do this, don't do that. You're not allowed to do this. And there's all these rules around what you can't do. And sometimes it's not that you can't do things. You just need to do them properly. So that's what it's really teaching people, how to get to know their body, how to see when their breathing is not working for them, when their muscles are not coordinated, when they do have those like left side or right side dominant type patterns, and then working on the core exercises and building up endurance and all those other things that we work into people's programs to make it so that in 6 months or however long it takes, they can go back to the exercise class that they're doing, or they can go back to CrossFit or whatever they love to do and be like, I feel strong enough to do this and I'm not going to hurt myself.
Yes, that is because that creates confidence, right?
Absolutely.
And, I think if we have confidence in one area, it's easier for us to have confidence in another area. And so giving women that confidence that they can go back to CrossFit or go to do these other things and work. But yeah, it's true. I mean, there is no such thing as perfect. It's such a contextual thing. And even you might have a day where everything is aligned and everything is working out. And then I find that then I just trip on a sidewalk and you totally, step wrong. And then all of a sudden it's oh, everything's off again. Yep. So Natasha, what are you, what is something that you're working on right now that's maybe outside of your comfort zone, or that you're trying to tell yourself you can do this, even though maybe you won't have evidence for it yet? Is there anything that you're doing right now that's
oh my gosh. So I have to admit, I've been in a major self-growth type time of my life at the moment, because I'm trying to find ways. I'm okay, who am I outside of being a mom and being a business owner? What else can I do? Right? I can't just work out all the time, and I can't just be a mom all the time. So I've been cycling through different hobbies to try to figure out what is going to stick.
That's fun.
So I was doing tennis lessons for a while, and I have to say, I don't know if I'll ever be good at tennis.
Anything with hand-eye coordination, I aspire. I look at it. I'm look at that. That looks, look at their legs, tennis legs, love.
And I look like I should be able to play tennis. I really people look at me and they're oh, she looks athletic. She should play. It's bad. It's real bad. So I might skip out on the tennis for a little bit. I might have to go down to pickleball. I feel like that's more my speed.
People are obsessed with pickleball around here. And it's pickleball season because it's not too hot. And the pickleball thing is on top of a casino out here. And they're you have to come. And I'm I don't even know if I have the hand-eye coordination for that.
Yeah, it's pretty much it's easier. It definitely is more fun. It's more fun. So I was doing that. And then recently I started taking pottery lessons. So doing pottery on a wheel. And once again, something completely outside my comfort zone. We had to introduce ourselves the first class, and they're so what do you do? Whatever. I'm I'm a personal trainer and I've never touched clay before. Yeah. They're okay, great. So that's been really fun. It's actually been very meditative for me. So I spend 3 hours there, and it's just a time to not think about work and not think about anything else. So it's been great.
That sounds really cool. That actually, that sounds up my speed. Although I think I could do it. I think I could do that. When we go to Cambodia, we have retreaters who we go, there's a pottery class. You can make pottery. And have you gone yet? And I'm no, I have not done that one yet. But I hear people love it. Yes. I hear people love it. So but I love that you're trying on hobbies. We had, it's actually funny. We had on a guest, his name was Thor, and he was a stay-at-home dad. And then his daughter went off to college, and he's because when you introduce yourself, people always want to know what you do. And now I don't know. Yeah. I don't have a job anymore. And so he's tried on different identities. So I love that this is becoming a theme of people giving themselves permission to just try something you're not good at, try something out of your comfort zone. But it's true, especially you started your business around the same time that you had your child. And it's that requires a lot of time, but it sounds like maybe she's in school more, maybe you have more free time, and you're going, what do I do now?
Yes. Well, and it's such this is what I said to my husband. I was it's really weird because it's almost we have early empty nester syndrome because we only have our kids half the time. So we actually have a lot of time where it's just us at home, and my default is to work more. So if I have free time, I'm going to do more work, and that's not great. And obviously we know that it's not good for your overall sanity and mental health.
It doesn't make your business go better.
No, it's actually worse because then you're just spreading yourself too thin. So that's kind of where that came from, where I'm okay, if we don't have our kids half the time, we can't just sit around and stare at each other. So what are we going to do instead? Right.
That is cool. That is so, I love that. So you are early. Well, because you mentioned you have a partner now, and so you guys have kids at the same time, and then your kids leave at the same time.
Yeah. So
brilliant.
We get every second weekend. Yeah.
Brilliant.
No, I would like to take credit for that. I totally organized it because otherwise we would have 2 kids or 1 kid, or it was just kind of crazy. Yeah. So I'm we need some order here. This is not working.
I have a friend that she has, she had 2 and he had 2 and then they had 1 together. And so sometimes they had 5 kids and sometimes they had 1 kid, but they never had no kid.
Yeah. I know. And like in non-COVID times, we would actually take a lot of time to travel. So that was nice because it was really working that when we didn't have the kids, that's when we can travel. But now obviously we're not traveling as much. So that's where all these hobbies, and I know I'm totally that person that like picked up hobbies during COVID. I was making bread. I was doing all the things, but it's fine.
But also like, again, it's play and like ideas just really come from it. And what I'm like, ladies, if you're listening, like it cannot always be about the partner or the kids or the job. No. There has to be something that you're doing to go, does this even bring me joy?
Exactly.
Does this make me joy? And like, it sounds like with the pottery, you're getting lost in time. So like that might be exactly what you need, for now.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. For now. And that's what I'm like, I'll do this for 6 weeks. If I like it, great. I'll sign up for another 6 weeks. If not, I can say I learned how to do pottery. Like, great.
Yeah. I hope everyone listening is like, there's not one way to do anything. And like, it's okay. And like the curiosity that you're having is like really fun and also better to do it now than when you are really empty nesters. And then you're like, whoa, exactly. No clue who I've been for the last 18 years. Not a clue.
Yeah. You need to have your own identity for sure.
Agreed. 100% agreed. Okay, Natasha. So this has been really fun. I just really love your honesty and like all the different things you've given people permission on. If anyone is like, okay, she sounds cool. She sounds up my alley. I skipped a step. How do I go back? How do people find you, follow you, get to know you?
Great question. So I'm very active on Instagram. You can find me on Instagram at fitmamasb, like Santa Barbara. And you can also check out the website, same thing, fitmamasb.com. That's where you'll find my online programs. Definitely watching my stories. You'll get to know me and a little behind the scenes of who I am and what our life looks like over here. My husband is also quite fit and healthy. So we're all about living the fit life and promoting that. If you do want to try out my mini course, I have a free mini course called Living the Fit Life. It's on the website. It's fitmamasb.com/promo, and you can download that.
Perfect. We'll put all those things in the show notes below. You can easily click the links, everyone. I think that's, I think it's really important that people can see behind the scenes and they can see your family and they can see that you're living the life that you're telling, like you practice what you preach. And like that I find is, if anyone's listening, like I find when I feel out of alignment, it's because either like I stopped doing something for me that I'm telling people to do for them, like that. So I do love Instagram and stories for that because it does kind of keep me on like, oh, if I'm going to tell people to take care of themselves first, I should show them that I'm doing the same thing. I'm doing it.
And also showing them that it's not perfect all the time, right? Like there's some days where, don't get me wrong, I am also lying in bed and eating cookies. Like that's just what happens. But 80% of the time we're living the fit life. Right. We're doing it.
Well, isn't that the rule, like 80-20 or something like that? Like,
yes, exactly.
No, I hear you. I wanted to take a picture today. A housekeeper hadn't come yet. And also like I had like a performer in the kitchen and the window chair in the living room. And I was like, so this is a hot mess. And this is actually how life is pretty much when Rosie isn't like totally. Bless Brad for letting like Pilates equipment just like live around the house.
You live around the Pilates equipment?
Yeah. Even though we got a bigger place, somehow it's still inching its way over. So before I let you go, Natasha, you've already mentioned some amazing things, but we love to like give people some be it action items. So bold, executable, intrinsic, or targeted steps that they can do to be it till they see it. What do you have for us?
All right. So one thing that I tell all my clients when they tell me they do not have time to do their core exercises, I'm all about timers because we can easily set a timer for 10 minutes, do 10 minutes of core exercises and move on with our day without even noticing. So think of how much time you'll spend sitting scrolling Instagram or on TikTok or whatever you're doing. You can set a timer for 10 minutes, get it done, get it over with, and check that box. So I'm also like a huge to-do list person. I actually like retroactively write my to-do list. So
so you write it afterwards and then check it all off.
Yeah, because then I feel better about it. So like getting those small wins. You're
like, look at all the things I did. Yeah. That's so fun. Totally. We're going to combine that with like Hillary Hartling's to-do list. She makes everything a ta-da. So you're just like, it's a total to-do list. You're not even writing the to-do. I love it.
Yeah, no, I'm like, it's hilarious to me because I'll catch myself doing it. I'm like, oh, well, I'll start with the to-do list of things I need to do. And then I start writing all the things I already did just so I can like cross them. Like genius. It feels so good.
But genius because we so focus focus on the things we didn't do, but if you never even wrote the things you did do,
you're fine.
Yeah. We love a timer. We have a time cube at our house.
Oh, perfect.
And
yes.
Brad has his own, I have my own. And like we've been known to be on airplanes with our time cubes out. Like, you know, because it's like, okay, I got a 6-hour flight. I got to work on these 3 things. And so I set the timer and like so it goes smart. Off in the air.
Oh my God. Yeah. People are like, who are these weirdos?
Yeah. They're like, oh my God. But they have studies, y'all, that show that time cubes are like actually.
It's huge.
It's huge. It's huge. It's huge. So I love that you set a timer. I love that you are like, just do 10 minutes. Like it's going to be something. I'm a big fan because we have a 15-minute workout that we want people to do. Cause it's like,
yes, I saw that. I love it.
Okay. But like, thank you. I'm so excited about it. But like, imagine like how good you're going to feel if you just did 15 minutes. Like,
well, and the thing is, most people, if they do 15 minutes, they're probably going to do more.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you can do 15 minutes, you can stop there and feel super accomplished, or you can be like, oh, well, now I'm kind of in the mood. I'm already in my workout clothes. I'm going to go for a walk.
Yeah, exactly.
So I love it. I think it's the perfect amount of time to get started and just do something.
Well, and I did it because like when we moved here, there's so much to unpack. There's so much work to do. Working from home doesn't mean it's easy to work out at home. So, total human being over here. And I was like, you have to go into your room, my Pilates room, for 15 minutes every day. Like you just have to, because this is a very expensive room that's taking up a lot of space. So if you're not going to use it, so that's kind of like where the impetus was. But I love that step. It's so fun. I can't wait to hear what Brad's take on it is, because when he hears this time cube, he's going to be obsessed. He's going to probably bring his time cube to the retreat.
I love it. Yeah. Bring it next week, please.
Yeah. He'll bring it I'll have him bring it to LA when we see each other. Natasha, thank you for being here. Thank you for being so generous with your time and your information. I think, you just gave so many women so much permission to be imperfect and to really like not be afraid to actually like heal before you take a next step. And so if you have questions about that, please check out Natasha in the show notes below. She's at Natasha SB on Instagram. I'm sure you can DM her there if you need any questions answered. And how are you going to use these tips in your life? Please screenshot it, tag Natasha, tag the Beit Pod, and let us know how this affected you. We want to hear it. And until next time, be it till you see it.
That's all I got for this episode of the Be It Till You See It podcast. One thing that would help both myself and future listeners is for you to rate the show and leave a review. And follow or subscribe for free wherever you listen to your podcast. Also, make sure to introduce yourself over at the Beit Pod on Instagram. I would love to know more about you. Share this episode with whoever you think needs to hear it. Help us and others be it till you see it. Have an awesome day.
Be It Till You See It is a production of As the Crows Fly Media.
It's written, produced, filmed, and recorded by your host, Lesley Logan, and me, Brad Crowell. Our associate producer is Amanda Fraterelli.
Kevin Perez at Diseño handles all of our audio editing.
Our theme music is by Ali at Apex Production Music, and our branding by designer and artist Gianfranco Cioffi.
Special thanks to our designer Jaira Mandal for creating all of our visuals, which you can't see because this is a podcast, and our digital producer Jay Perdoso for editing all the video each week so you can.
And to Angelina Herrico for transcribing each of our episodes so you can find them on our website. And finally, to Meredith Crowell for keeping us all on point and on time.